Welcome, guys, to another Town Talk with Canadian Yorker here. For tonight, I wanted to give you guys an interesting um, thing that just happened in regards to following Jake Paul and his professional boxing career as he is fighting fighters. Um, so here's something that just came out yesterday. I wanted to leave this information to you guys and talk to you guys about this today because yesterday we had just, I guess, continuing to talk about the situation occurring with Mike Perry and Jake Paul. I'm sorry. Jake Paul actually is getting challenged once again by Nate Diaz. And Nate Diaz and Logan Paul had a fight last year in 2023 where Jake Paul actually defeated Nate Diaz in points. So this article actually talks about Nate Diaz wants a second crack at taking down Jake Paul again. So according to this article, it's written by Mirror from the UK, mirror.co.uk. Jake Paul issues actually responded to Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz's fight fell out. Jake Paul outpointed Nate Diaz last year in their grudge match following boxing fight, and the former UFC star has he wants a rematch against Jake Paul after beating Jorge Masvidal last weekend. So Jake Paul actually did not accept to fight Nate Diaz once again. Jake Paul refused to have a rematch against Nate Diaz unless Jake Paul actually fights Nate Diaz and beats Nate Diaz in a UFC cage. So this is interesting. Now Jake Paul, I don't know if Jake Paul has fought before in a UFC cage, but he wants to mix it up now. Instead of fighting in a boxing ring, he's going to take it to Nate Diaz's territory and fight in an MMA style fight. Now this is going to be interesting because Nate Diaz actually lost his professional debut against Paul last summer, but delivered an improved performance to beat his UFC rival, Jorge Masvidal, last weekend. He called for a rematch, but apparently Jake Paul is actually interested not in a boxing fight, but he wants to fight Nate Diaz in an MMA fight. Now this is interesting because Jake Paul actually signed with the Professional Fighters League in 2022, but has yet to make his debut for the promotion. He has offered Nate Diaz a fight with the PFL, but his rival declined the offer. Um, so actually says after beating him, Diaz says just off the top of my head, I would like to whip Paul's behind. Okay, continuing. Nate Diaz says, I would like to get a win against Leon Edwards, who's the best fighter in the world right now at 170. I think that's something major who actually brings something that I can take and put in a credential box. That's what I'm going for. He's not playing for any fun fights, but he says that's not fun. You meet Paul immediately goes on social media and mocks Nate Diaz, and says that Nate Diaz had declined and that had ducked his $15 million MMA offer because he was hit so hard he forgot how to walk. Okay, and he also calls Masvidal trash too as well. So here we have Jake Paul trashing his two people, Nate Diaz and Masvidal. Um, so continuing, Nate Diaz actually says, he was on a 4 week, for a whole month. He was training before he actually fought Masvidal, and he worked hard at it. He went on a 4 week Bender fight before the fight. He trained hard for months and months, and they were until they were over it. And so he started back and kicking it. Um, so he says, if it was a scary opponent, you wouldn't allow yourself to do that, but it was just easy to go to sleep at night fighting that guy. But it was so good that it happened like that because now it's necessary to work out discipline, go back and can whip his behind. He says, he's not the weakest puncher, but he's the one that wanted to fight 30 pounds over his. No, Jake Paul was the one that wanted Nate Diaz to fight 30 pounds over his original weight division. And so, so actually, Nate Diaz actually questions if he's gonna sit there and let Jake Paul throw him and knock him out as hard as he can, because he was just getting through the fight because he was halfway to his potential that day. So here's an interesting article, guys. That there are a lot of things happening in between. The build up to Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. Now Jake Paul has to fight Nate Diaz. Jake Paul has to fight Mike Perry. Jake Paul tried to fight. He offered an offer to fight Muhammad Ali's grandson, Nico Ali Walsh, and Nico Ali Walsh turned him down. So this is interesting that Jake Paul is getting more, and he's getting offers from different people to fight him, and we're gonna have to see what's gonna happen between now and November, because there's different people that want a crack at Jake Paul. And so you guys just let me know what you think in the comment section below. Don't be afraid to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. So have a great night.